Resident Evil 9 is a game with sauce. I got a copy of it on my birthday from my goated uncle. Thank you, goated uncle. It was a really good gift. I am about to dog on a very specific part of the game, but it was a really good game, and I really appreciate it, okay? I promise. Since the game released on February 27th of 2026, I have done everything I can to avoid spoilers for it. Successfully, might I add. In preparations for the day that I finally got my hands on that sweet, sweet disc. Ooh, look at that. Look at that right there. It came with this. It came with a poster. Come on, that's tough. That's tough. You don't get this with a digital download. Shoutout physical media. If Sony wants to take this from me, they'll have to pry it from my cold, dead, sticky hands. Yeah, Sony, they're sticky. So stay the fuck away. You too, Ubisoft, you freaks. I hate Ubisoft. The only thing I knew about it was that it was taking the action-packed gameplay of the old Resident Evil games, the pant-pooping, sneaking around of the newer Resident Evil games, where you're kind of sneaking through halls and, you know, showing up to dinner and getting fed this.
Eat it. It's good.
Dude, I am not eating that slop. What the hell?
Yes.
Oh my god. You know, these residents seem kinda evil. Requiem. And combining the two to make this experience that flip-flops between the sneaky stuff and the action stuff. It is a great experience from start to finish. I would highly recommend it to anybody. Now, speaking as somebody who really honestly only wanted to play the game because he saw Leon do this to a zombie in a trailer. Ooh. Come on. The grace sections are a very effective and memorable addition to the game, and frankly, are arguably the most memorable parts of the campaign. That being said, and let me get into proper garb before I say this, Leon sections have sauce. Leon's got saving the president's daughter month, John Wick level gun kata skills, one-liners for every situation he's in, no matter how serious. Here for a checkup? I think I want a second opinion. I can see my house from up here. Well, rest easy, officer. Rest easy, officer. The combat is so good. It is the classic Resident Evil 4 combat that we all know and love, but now you're a little more John Wick. A little bit. And I love John Wick. I have his Funko Pops right here. I got his Funko from Chapter 4. I've got the classic. And I've got his dog. Aww. I'm a fan. I think the moment that I fell in love with it was when I was playing the streets level in the beginning of the game. And I was running down and I was killing zombies. And I shot one in the kneecap and I kicked him. And then the second after I kicked him, I aimed again. And Leon did this like one hand pistol forward, almost like he was punching forward with the muzzle of the gun. It was so sick. And from then on, it was about 4 hours of super sick combat, spliced between about 4 hours of Grace sneaking around. The good part about this, it made the campaign really fun. The pacing remained interesting, the gameplay remained varied, it was a great experience. The bad part about this is that single-player campaigns don't lend themselves towards replayability. There's some juice left to squeeze out of this combat system that I'm not being given the opportunity to because the story is done. Capcom recognized this issue and addressed it about 3 months down the line after launch with the new game mode, Leon Must Die Forever, directly inspired by Ethan Must Die Forever from Resident Evil 7. Leon Must Die Forever is a roguelike mode where you play as Leon and you take him, his beautiful locks, the tightest shirt imaginable. Dude, it's tactical. This is how it's supposed to fit. How many evil residents have you met? Don't tell me how to do my job. This isn't even that tight. This is loose. This is loose for me. This is tactical loose. And you go through a set of combat arenas taken from levels in the main campaign with the goal of collecting gear, collecting skills, and ultimately fighting the final boss of the campaign once again. On paper, an amazing idea. So how could one of my favorite combat systems, delivered through the mode of one of my favorite game modes of all time, possibly miss the mark? Well, Let me run you through what the average run looks like. You spawn in on the streets, the same level from the campaign. You have a pistol, 9 rounds, and some beginner enemies to kill. You kill a couple zombies, go to a box, grab a random gun, and your run begins. You have to make your way to different red doorways scattered around the map that lead to different areas on this tree. Ultimately, your goal is to make it to the final boss of the game. Spoiler alert, 3, 2, 1, Victor, and complete the run. Whenever you kill an enemy, you get what I'm going to call ability points, not to be confused with the points that you get for completing the campaign. Campaign points, which Capcom so eloquently abbreviates as Capcom. Are you fucking insane? Hank! Don't abbreviate Cyberpunk! Hank! Oh my god. Other games do it too. Who the hell decided that COD points should have an abbreviation? Those are 2 letters that should never go together, guys. Anyway, you press a button and a menu opens, and you get to spend these ability points, not to be confused with the aforementioned points, on exactly what you would think abilities. You get a selection from 3 random abilities or assists like refilling your health or hatchet durability, and these abilities can range from anything like making a certain type of weapon do more damage to making you do more damage and take more damage, or maybe more health, but now you deal less damage. Maybe it makes your grenades more effective. I think you guys get the idea. There's a pretty broad spectrum of things that they can buff. The list goes on. As you get further into the area tree and you start finding harder levels, the amount of points that you get for defeating an enemy increases. So far, so good. Now, for those of you who have not yet delved into the beautiful world that is the world of roguelikes, here's what you need to know. The basic premise of a roguelike is that they encourage replayability. You choose a starting loadout, and then you go into a set of random levels that are filled with random enemies, random items, random weapons, random buffs, and ultimately end with a boss battle. The gameplay loop often revolves around making use of these random elements in order to beat the game. In the pursuit of replayability, however, these games often sacrifice certain aspects of other genres that make those genres compelling. Roguelikes often don't have strong narratives. And no, your pages of lore on the Risk of Rain wiki don't change that. God bless you, but it's just a fact that these games are no Last of Us. They also often include repetitive gameplay. These runs that you do often consist of you doing the same thing in different ways and in different randomly provided and generated contexts. Now, on paper, this sounds like a negative, but think of something like Sifu. I love Sifu. Sifu is an incredibly repetitive game by design, but it never matters because playing Sifu is like all of the good parts of being on drugs. I've never done drugs. I just hear that people really like doing them. So I think that Sifu is probably the same. These games also often include a bunch of different upgrades and items that buff certain parts of your kit or your character and are designed to encourage on-the-fly unique playstyles. Games like Risk of Rain 2, my beloved, do this very, very well because they give you a lot of upgrades, which means that you're constantly stacking these small to medium-sized buffs. And as a nice addition, these upgrades visually reflect on your character. So by the end of a run, you might be throwing out lightning bolts that heal you because you strapped a ukulele to your blicky. And you might be twice your initial size with 5 times your initial health. Maybe you have beefy melee attacks. Who knows? It's different every single time. And that's part of the allure. You never know what character you're going to be playing by the end of any given run. This adds that little sense of what if to every time you do another run. This is where the loop comes from. So the tenets that we're looking for that make a good roguelike are replayability through randomness, super fun core gameplay loops, and meaningful, unique, unpredictable upgrades that give every run that you do an unpredictable feel. Now, Leon Must Die Forever actually checks off one of these boxes really, really well. And you can probably guess which one it is. I'll let you think about it. No, I won't. It's the fun core gameplay loop. You already know. You've been watching the footage. This is still the same head-kicking, kneecap-shooting John Wick cosplaying Leon, who we know and love. He's also older now and has a Porsche, and I think he had a cool watch. I should put on a cool watch. This watch is kind of cool. Is this close to the one that Leon wears? I don't know. I have no idea. This core loop kept the game fun for about the first 3 runs. I was killing enemies, getting new upgrades, Finding new weapons that weren't in the campaign, hello, that's cool. The whole 9 yards. I had high hopes, I was excited, but pretty quickly, the cracks started to show. The first issue lies in how the game structures its areas. They're completely static, regardless of any randomness or difficulty or anything. There's nothing. You always have access to all of the same areas in the exact same order and location. The red doors don't move, the order of the levels never changes, the enemies within those levels have very minimal levels of variation, so this is already kind of lame. But this problem becomes exacerbated when you realize that a lot of these locations are just run killers. I could spend time talking about how the Super Tyrant eats up too much ammo and too much time. I could spend time talking about how the Blisterhead area is way too high risk and way too resource intensive, considering the amount of rewards that you don't get for playing in that area. And it would be a valid way to spend that time. But I don't have that time. I don't have that time because I need to make known my hatred for the Care Center. The Care Center is the very first area that you can travel to. You go there just by walking forward on the street level, which is where you start every single time. If you decide to go and loot the street level, cars pile up and block the path to the Care Center. So you have to go here with minimal to zero upgrades. So you enter the level with your pistol, 9 bullets, and maybe an extra gun with 1 magazine if you're lucky. You are immediately met with this fucking guy, Dr. Chainsaw, or as I like to call him, Dr. Chainsaw using douchebag, or as I really like to call him, Dr. Chud. Fuck you, dude. I hate you. So Dr. Chud here will rush you immediately. And when he does, you have 3 options. Option 1, parry the chainsaw. Parrying the chainsaw breaks your hatchet, and in Leon Must Die Forever, you cannot sharpen and repair your hatchet at any given time like you can in the campaign. You have to find these like green axes on the floor. It's completely random. Option 2, run. Try and avoid the chainsaw. The problem is, Leon controls like a tank in this game, and the chainsaw one-taps you if it touches you, so this is risky and unreliable. Option 3 is to try and shoot and kill the doctor with the 9 bullets in your pistol. This is usually the most practical choice, although it's inconsistent. When you kill the doctor, he will drop the chainsaw. The chainsaw hits the ground, and it starts spinning for like 15 seconds. While the chainsaw is spinning, Leon can't pick it up. There's no interact button, and if he goes near it, it will damage him. If another enemy reaches the chainsaw though, they can pick it up just fine, spin or no spin. And then, I swear to God, I'm pretty sure that their health bar gets buffed to match Dr. Chud's inflated ass health bar. So you do the Chud Loop all over again. This can happen for every single enemy in this room, of which there are many. There is some loot that you can get here, but it's so risky right off the bat that it's just not worth it, not even close. So basically everything in this room and on the path beyond is a non-starter for the smart player. Weird balancing situation as a result of mechanics like this are rampant throughout this mode, and it generally funnels the player into creating the most optimized route possible, and then doing that exact route the exact same way every single time. You learn to avoid the run killers. You learn what the most efficient paths through the most efficient areas are. By the end of it, you're beelining to the boss, and there's no variation in the route that you take. This takes away from the random element, which takes away from the replayability, which is the core foundation of fun in a roguelike. They also make a pretty damning balancing decision with the hatchet. I mentioned previously that the hatchet can break, and that when it breaks, it can't be repaired at any given time like it can in the main campaign. This mechanic existed the way that it did in the main campaign for a reason, and it is not because the main campaign was supposed to be easy. It's because the hatchet isn't actually a powerful tool, and let me expand on that. I know this might sound weird, because we've all seen the videos of Leon parrying a car, or parrying a missile, or you could probably parry bullets in this game if you time it right. But what I'm really getting at here is that the hatchet isn't a powerful weapon. It really doesn't do a whole lot of meaningful damage when you use it to attack things, but what it is good at is being the delivery method for several core mechanics in the gameplay. Parrying, as we just discussed, is the most obvious example of this. But there are also several contextual takedowns that can only be performed with a sharpened hatchet, and they've got no alternative version that can be executed when your hatchet is broken. If you stun the enemy and make them kneel in one certain way, then Leon can deliver a swift kick to the temple and deal a good amount of damage, but if they lean a different type of way, then you need to use your hatchet in order to execute them, and you just can't. So you don't have any meaningful way to interact with them and take advantage of the state that you've created other than just shooting them more. power, which is just the same as shooting them, which you can always do. There are also several types of enemies and bosses that pretty much outright require the ability to parry, and stripping the player of that ability, depending on where they end up, can soft lock their run. It's an anti-fun mechanic that isn't balanced or implemented well, and it's a fantastic example of how one small change can impact the enjoyability of a game so heavily. The other main anti-fun mechanic is in how the game scales its difficulty. The difficulty does two main things. It increases enemy stats, mainly health and damage, and it increases how often you see pieces of shit like this. I hate you. Here's the rundown. Red guys take massively reduced damage from bullets, but they take sufficient damage from melee attacks. They really don't take that much damage from melee attacks, they just take like some. Blue guys are resistant to all types of damage, unless you parry them, in which case that shield goes away temporarily, so you're encouraged to parry and then dump damage into them in a very short window. These enemies are massive difficulty spikes when they arrive, especially because these modifiers can be slapped onto major enemies like that chef from the care center with the big, like, horse-cutting axe, meat cleaver. Dude, nobody's getting in melee range of this fucking guy. Look at this fucking guy. Bro, leave me alone. I like to refer to these enemies as a hatchet check. Do you have your hatchet repaired? Well, if not, you better hope you find a little green axe. Didn't find a little green axe, you're fucked. The red enemy is a little more manageable, because if you get lucky, if you shoot him in the right place, you can dump some kicks into him, and the kicks do some good damage. But if your hatchet's busted and you find one of these blue guys, you're fucked. They're nigh unkillable. Do both of these mechanics work? Kind of. You know, they're not buggy. I would argue that they're not well implemented, but they function. Are they fun? Absolutely not. As a result of enemies like this and just the overall increase of enemy health across the board, the amount of damage that you can do and the amount of ammo that you need to use in order to kill certain enemies becomes an extremely limiting factor when it comes to creating a build. Sources of damage on high difficulties become such a limiting factor, in fact, that you are all but forced into creating builds that min-max specifically your damage on, generally speaking, specifically one type of weapon. Maybe two, depending on if you want to lean into ammo economy. You can have a max of 8 upgrades in any given run. Most of these upgrades are relatively small stat boosts and are really only effective when they're stacked. Unlike a game like Risk of Rain, where you stack buffs as aggressively as you can against a clock that increases the difficulty as it ticks higher, creating a sort of risk-reward gameplay experience in solely how you manage your time. Leon Must Die Forever makes every skill take up a chunk of what is essentially your skill inventory, which means you can't really diversify. You can't take a 10% buff to your pistols and a 15% buff to your shotguns and something that makes you do 15% less damage but gives you 50% more health. Not because they aren't neat enough in their own right, but because they take up too much space. The moment you stray from the path of making one specific weapon type or gameplay style more effective and damage dealing, you are potentially failing the run before you even get to the stress testing portion of the run. So let's take a look at the experience that all of this creates. Leon Must Die Forever is a roguelike that features the exact same layout of levels on every single run, and mechanically incentivizes you to take the exact same route every single time. It contains the exact same clusters of the same few bullet sponge enemies on these same levels, and you have to kill these bullet sponge enemies in order to stack ability points, in order to get abilities that boost the exact same skill to a high enough degree that you have some chance of beating the final boss. Not only is this not fun, it is anti-RNG. In roguelikes, RNG is supposed to be the driving factor of fun. The systems at play leverage the random element in order to keep the experience fresh. In Leon Must Die Forever, however, randomness is your enemy. It is a set of ever so slightly changing variables that stand to do nothing but throw you off of the predictable and optimized route that the game almost requires you to do in order to beat it on any meaningful level of difficulty. But hey, at least the combat looks cool. But what about progression? Does the game have any rewards for beating these higher difficulties? Yes, it does. When you beat the game on a new difficulty, the game rewards you by giving you a new starting build for Leon. You get a new starting weapon, a new starting perk, and a new cosmetic. For example, when I beat Tier 1 for the first time, I got this starting setup for Leon, which lets you spawn with an SMG, lets you spawn with the Surveyor perk, which lets you... Leon, what the fuck are you wearing? Capcom, I beat your roguelike and this is my reward? You give me a new build for my character, but in order to use said new build, I have to dress like Catboy Leon? Are you insane? You know, speaking on this, and this might just be me nitpicking, but what is up with the aesthetics of this mode? Out of place looking health bars, glowing spiders, weird red doorways that clash with the environment that they're in. All the buffed enemies just glow blue or glow red. Like, I understand it's supposed to be a little cartoony, right? Maybe arcadey. But the visuals here, they lack sauce. It's like there was no plan here. Everything about this game mode seems poorly planned and poorly executed. I know a lot of people will rebuke with the fact that this is a free update, and they're 100% right. Like, genuinely, for real, they're right. I am overanalyzing a minigame right now, and I could see how caring this much about something so small seems crazy. I am a big believer in alternate modes in games, especially story games. A narrative-focused game can sometimes feature gameplay systems that, in the runtime of the game, don't give us the chance to sink our teeth into them to the degree that we potentially could. We don't get to marinate with them long enough. There's still meat on the bones by the time that we're done and the credits are rolling. I'm trying to get another bite, but they're kicking me out of Fogo de Chao because I wore cat ears to a Brazilian steak restaurant. Leon, what the fuck are you wearing? I remember growing up, one of my favorite games was Batman Arkham Origins. I loved the story, roaming the open world. I wished I could do it as Deathstroke, but that is a rant and a video for another day. Point is, it was a great game. It was also the game that I played for a long time. I was a kid. I wasn't getting new games left and right. Actually, I might have been. I had a pretty solid childhood, but I digress. From my perspective of like my 12-year-old self or whatever I was, this was the game that I had for the long run. So I needed to get my money's worth out of it, even though I didn't pay for it. But you understand what I'm saying. I gotta play this for as long as I can. And that, my friends, is where challenge mode came into play. My God, I love challenge mode from the Arkham games. Challenge mode let you replay combat and stealth sections from the main story, as well as dive into new, freshly crafted ones. If I put 15 hours into the story, then I put 150 into the challenge mode, because it was beautifully designed. It leveraged the strongest parts of the gameplay into the levels that it provided. It worked with its established systems, rather than against them. Previous Resident Evil games have been famous for this as well. I haven't even finished Resident Evil 4. You know why? Because I can't stop playing the Mercenaries mode. Mercenaries is so fun. I really do need to finish that campaign. And aside from Mercenaries mode, which was essentially a horde shooter, and it let you play as like different characters, that was really cool. There was raid mode, which I never played, but I hear that it was like a looter shooter. And while I haven't played it, from what I understand, people really liked it. And apparently it's been a while since we've had it in a Resident Evil game. A lot of people were expecting its return in Resident Evil 9, and to this date, we haven't seen it yet. These are, again, great examples of different modes that remix the core gameplay and keep it fun without actively fighting against the core tenets of what made that core gameplay so fun in the first place. The silver lining to all of this is that we know that Resident Evil 9 is getting support in the future. A story DLC is confirmed, and the menu that Leon Must Die Forever is contained in is called Extra Games. Not extra game. Games is plural, as in more in the future. Now, I personally would love to see some tweaks to Leon Must Die Forever, because a roguelike in a Resident Evil game with gameplay as good as this one is literally like a dream come true. A roguelike that's properly executed, that is. But at the very least, maybe they will learn from the overwhelmingly negative feedback that this game mode has gotten on the internet and create one that is just more fun next time. One can only hope, I guess. And believe me, the hog is crossing his fingers. I got a sign that says hog crossing. The hog is crossing his fingers, huh? That's pretty good. This is a birthday gift from my dad. Shout out, Dad. Thanks, Dad. This is a good one. I got some shirts, too. Y'all see those on stream. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Capcom, if you see this, great game. Do more John Wick stuff in the future, please. Uncle, if you see this, you're goated. I love ya. Great gift, man. This game rocks. I'm sorry for dogging on the roguelike. I promise, I really, really like this game. I really like this game. It might be the best game of the year so far. And you guys saw my Crimson Desert video. You know I like that game. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Thank you to Seeker343, Smiley Face, Zinni, A Goose, Oof Oof, Catalyst25, Spike'em59, Vintage, The Worst Box, Italian, Gingy, and Jacob Andrew. Thank you guys so much for your support. It means the world to me now more than ever. You guys are what make this possible, and you guys are what keep this fun. Thank you so much.